everybody, and welcome back to the Fortress of Solitude. Today we're going to be talking about Deathstroke the Terminator issue 1, written by Tony Fleeks, with art by Carmine Di Giandomenico, colors by Ivan Placencia, and letters by Wes Abbott. Slade Wilson is back and his life is about to get turned upside down as Wintergreen, Slade's sometimes fateful butler and friend, is told by Rose Wilson that her father will never change. Wintergreen understands that, but he can't keep helping Slade by himself forever. He is hoping that she's going to help out. Rose, however, can't, since being in even the same room as Slade is a nightmare to her, and she isn't going to help with what he has proposed. Wintergreen reminds her that he won't be around forever to pick up after Slade, and he needs help since the life of a mercenary is hard. Rose knows that Slade isn't a mercenary, he's just a killer. So I haven't really been paying attention to where Slade currently is in the DCU before this event. I'm not exactly sure where he was, but I like that we open this issue just kind of laying it out that yeah, he's a killer, his family fucking hate him, he's going to be killing a lot of people and kind of isolated from everyone he holds dear to him. That sounds just like what Slade Wilson should really be. So far, Tony Fleeks is setting it out for new readers quite well, and I quite appreciate that as someone who, by all intents and purposes, is a new reader. Deathstroke, meanwhile, is scouting out a target, telling Wintergreen that he is in position. He goes and checks on his arsenal he brought with him before looking over the small army in the street below the building he is targeting, asking Wintergreen if they are secure on their line. Wintergreen instead tells Slade that he talked with Rose, something Slade doesn't want to hear about while he's on a mission, since he's got a job to do, asking who the client is. Wintergreen cannot tell him who the client is though, since this was a blind drop mission, and knowing Slade hates those, he got the client to pay extra for Slade's services. Slade gets to work laying traps and tricks as Wintergreen tries to talk to him about Rose, telling him to reach out and make things right. So I don't know about you, but seeing Slade over the years just mess up his relationships with his various children and people he's counted as family, you would think Wintergreen would have cottoned on to the fact that he isn't really the best person to have a family. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and largely it does not work. And you would think that he would, try, or maybe even stop bothering to try and get him to talk to his, be it daughter, his son, whoever is around at the time. But I guess he keeps trying, which I guess is commendable. His friend wants him to try and make something of his life outside of being a killer, but it's obviously not working. Slade eventually gets some details on his target, finding they are a Caucasian man who is divorced from his family, something he finds they have in common. On top of that, he finds they have an army of ex-special forces guarding them. Wintergreen tells him about the loads of security in his way, but Slade knows that's fine, jamming a stick into a van's gas pedal and blasting it off a building he's on, riding the truck down into the small army below the building he is targeting. The truck, filled with explosives, blows up as it hits the ground, killing all of the men in a not-so-quiet way, despite the client wanting this to be done in a less inconspicuous way. This is where the book really lets artist Carmine Di Giandomenico off the chain, and he gives us some really awesome action sequences. I know his use of 3D objects and how he has 3D objects in, the foreground and the background isn't for everyone. I totally understand that, but I really love it. It works so well for someone like Deathstroke, and he did work on the Flash, which I really liked, and it worked there. It works for characters who are constantly moving, or there's some sort of kinetic action going on. So people like Deathstroke and Flash, it works really well for. Deathstroke gets to work, killing the soldiers as we learn about his letter to Rose and how he thinks he is changing now, but isn't sure if it's good for him. While killing the goons, Slade talks to Wintergreen about the client, not pleased with the client trying to tell him how to go about the job he's on and tell him how to go about doing it quietly or not quietly. Wintergreen reminds him of the money and how that's probably going to help ease his conscience, as will the lavish gifts and fancy gear, but Slade knows he doesn't need any of that sort of stuff. As he takes out the soldiers arriving on motorbikes, he decides to take one of the bikes for himself, loading it up with grenades and explosives and ramming it into the next checkpoint he has to blast. As Slade watches the site burn, he thinks about the letter to Rose, knowing how he's just a grumpy old man, where change is hard for him, and evolution was never in his nature, and it was always the same with him, especially because he was in the military where that was drummed into him. He knows also, despite having superhuman strength thanks to his super soldier serum, serum, it doesn't make him adaptable and open to new ideas. They just make him more stuck in his ways. I'm liking this introspection from SLADE. I guess he is kind of capable of change. He just doesn't think he is and is blind to see it, since him admitting he can't change is him showing how much he's changing. Like, he knows something is wrong and he's trying to rectify it. That's change. But I like Fleeks also comparing it to like his super soldier serum, super strength, and healing factor, how they don't allow change. Like, you think of a healing factor, it heals the wound, it turns it back to normal, turns it back to what it was before. So it literally cannot change. Like, he cannot, change his body because of it. So I like that there's that sort of connection there. That's kind of a smart idea, and I like that Fleeks went there. That's a really cool thing, and I hope that kind of continues through the story about this evolution of change that SLADE maybe thinks he's not going on, but really clearly is. SLADE heads into the big building to find his target, expecting more of the same goons, but is surprised by the explosive arrival of the body doubles, two assassins who found out usually tangle with Resurrection Man and not Deathstroke. I'm hoping this series does this a lot, pitting SLADE against other super assassins or groups of super assassins, since, like here, it leads to some top tier violence. SLADE immediately attacks the women, fighting both at once and really laying it on thanks to the women both having their own healing factors, so they can take it. Body Double soon gets the better of SLADE, but only for a moment, stabbing him in the gut with a sword, making SLADE again think about his family and how much pain he has caused them. The sword plus the emotional weight of his family sends SLADE into a controlled rage, and he rips the sword from his stomach, stabbing one of the women with it and shooting the other, giving him an opening to keep going with his mission. SLADE heads for the safe room and kicks down the door, telling Wintergreen to remind the client that they charge extras when dealing with metahumans. Things take a real twist here, as inside the safe room is not his target, but Wintergreen, beaten, bloody, and tied up to a chair. Throwing his mask off, SLADE runs to his friend's aid, trying to find a pulse, but he cannot, as Wintergreen is dead. Instead, he finds a note pinned to him that tells him that someone is taking everything. On the laptop in front of Wintergreen, SLADE finds whomever did this to his friend took every penny he had in Deathstroke in, meaning he has no money now. So this is the old taking the money from the billionaire and leaving them penniless trope. I was wondering if it was going to go in this direction in order to get SLADE back to basics and making him more streamlined, and thus making him more reader friendly and approachable. It's an age-old trope. Like, how many times has like Batman lost his money or Iron Man has lost his money? It's something that always happens when you have a character who has an immense wealth. They always take it away, and then eventually they'll get it back, but they take it away just so it's just the character doing everything. He's not relying on something like money or fancy technology. I can see exactly what Tony Fleeks is doing, and I kind of like it. I really like this sort of trope. It's always really fun to see how a writer plays with it. I also do like that Wintergreen is in jeopardy again, and SLADE now truly is alone in his mission, and it makes it more personal for him too, since he doesn't have that person in his ear, more or less, telling him that he needs to do this and needs to do that. He's kind of untethered in that way, so I imagine he's going to be right up into the hyperviolence. SLADE is soon surrounded by more soldiers who demand he surrender, but SLADE kills them all with his hidden guns, using Wintergreen's body as a shield as he finds a way out of the room. Unfortunately, the chair Wintergreen is on has a bomb strapped to it, and when he picks Wintergreen up, it goes off, just as whomever he has been talking to with this entire mission tells him tick-tock. As the explosion engulfs SLADE and most of the room, the soldiers move in and see what's left, finding Deathstroke alive and well, as he tells Rose that before he was just a killer, but now he is something much, much worse. See, I like the simplicity of this setup. SLADE's money is gone, his friend is gone, his family is gone. It's taken all of that away, and now he's on a revenge mission. It's how Deathstroke should be. Simple premise that lets SLADE get into work, and for the artist of the book to go ham with action sequences, and so far the book is capitalizing on all of that. I'm sure there's probably going to be a larger plot at play here, revealed in the next coming issues, but I like this simple opening. It just like tells you who the character is and what this book is going to be. Deathstroke the Terminator issue 1 was a back to basics turn for old SLADE, who's trying really hard to change his ways, although what he's becoming is so much worse than we anticipated. I love how new reader friendly this is. This is kind of resetting SLADE back to one. It's doing the old trope of taking a rich character's money away from them so they have to go back to basics themselves, but it's a tried and true trope and one that I really like, so I'm intrigued to see a more grounded SLADE, one who doesn't have all the bells and whistles a SLADE with billions of dollars would have. And I'm intrigued to see what Tony Fleecs is going to do with this story, and if there is a much larger plot at play, or we're going to keep it simple and have just SLADE trying to do better by his family by way of hyper-violence. Either way, I'm really excited for this run and looking forward to the next issue. I'm going to give this issue an 8.5 out of 10.